Start. This is an old. All right, I'm ready to go.
Good to go on this end, so whenever you'd like to.
All right. All right, welcome back to part 2 of the Pro Football Doc podcast. I hope you had fun. I had fun talking to Carl Banks. That was my first time. He asked some intelligent questions, and we could have gone longer. Fun second segment here, though. We're going to talk about Tiger versus Phil. We're going to talk about some golf. We're going to talk about some baseball, some basketball, what happened here, film, etc., and cover a lot of ground. And of course, some football here, injury rates, bunch of things as we get started here. The first thing that we're going to talk about here a little bit is Tiger versus Phil. Phil Mickelson, fellow San Diegan, won the PGA Championship, a major, the oldest player ever to win a major. He's eligible for the senior tour. And I talk about it in this video, but we'll talk a little more here today. At YouTube as well. Go to YouTube and find the video from Pro Football Doc and subscribe. And we'll have some new features for you. Regular videos throughout the week. You can call them mini podcasts, etc. But someone who qualifies to be a member of AARP won a major with a lot of great athletes. So does this reopen the question of skill versus sport for golf? And here's what I would say. It clearly takes both, right? But if you turn back to pre-Tiger, golf was often classified with bowling or darts, etc. In some ways, it's more of a skill. Older people can play it. It's not really a sport as in athletes. And I think Tiger Woods put an end to all that, right? Because he was fit and in such great shape. And look at all the young players on the tour now, not just Bryson DeChambeau, and all the guys are fit, right? It's a new era. And yes, Phil has gotten himself back into great shape, but he's still 50, almost 51, and he won it all. So I think what this shows is you need to be athletic. It is a sport, but it's also a considerable skill. Let's think about this. Darts, the oldest champion ever is 52. Bowling, the oldest champion ever is 57, right? And because of that, people have said, well, see, clearly that's more skilled in sport because 50-year-olds. But now we have a 50-year-old, almost 51-year-old winning a major. And it almost clearly, that's why I say Tiger versus Phil. Tiger has taken it to be a sport, and Phil has reproven that a lot of skill is involved. And hats off to Phil. I'm happy for him. I'm not denigrating his accomplishment here. It is amazing. And how amazing would it be if he could win the US Open coming up here in San Diego? You think it's nuts on the 18th fairway at the PGA Championship? If that happens in San Diego, that will be crazy. So love to see it. But my point is, and let's look at football. I get it. Tom Brady was 43. The game of football is clearly a sport. And Tom Brady is athletic, but he's certainly in the very bottom tier of athletes at quarterback across today's NFL. Yet he's the GOAT. So it's his skill and his mind that takes him over the edge as a 43-year-old. He's in the bottom 10th percentile of athleticism and speed for quarterbacks in the NFL today. Yet he's great. So no question, football is a sport. And look, I don't have the skill or athleticism to be a good golfer, right? I mean, the joke is you don't want your surgeon to be too good at golf. Don't worry about that. You're fine, everybody. I'm not a great golfer. I don't have the skill or the athleticism. It takes both, but I just think it's interesting. It puts a new emphasis on the skill portion and the mental portion with Phil Mickelson, almost age 51, winning it all. All right, and then let's keep going here a little bit. Sorry, guys. This was an interesting stat I saw from an ESPN research analyst. Pre-COVID, the age of the champions, Mahomes 24, Kawhi Leonard 27, Colin Morikawa 23. Post-COVID or COVID, Tom Brady 43, LeBron James 35, Phil Mickelson 50. Coincidence? Maybe. Or who knows what's responsible, but I thought this was an interesting tidbit here. Moving on, I tweeted something earlier in this week. I hope everyone realizes it's in fun. I don't have an axe to grind on any of this. If there's an ALM, it's American Lives Matter. You know, I mean, all lives matter. You know, and I'm good with any form of it. I thought this was interesting. Eugene Chung claiming that he wasn't the right minority, and I was just making a joke out of nothing more minority than an Asian in the NFL. Look, in the NFL, the running joke, players would ask me all the time, is Norm Chow related to you? Well, Norm Chow's name is the coach, is spelled C-H-O-W. I'm C-H-A-O. I used to say, yeah, he's my uncle, and people would believe me, and we laugh about it. And, you know, when we had a safety, Lloyd Lee, on the Chargers, we used to bond and laugh about it. I mean, it was just a fraternity. There weren't a lot of Asians in the NFL. And although I think the Colts analytics guys are both Asian, but, you know, I just make a joke of this. So if anyone thought it was being a big deal here, I wasn't. I was just having poking a little bit of fun here. Let's go in and talk a little bit about football. There's some news again this week. Dak Prescott says he's ready to go and playing in a game. He said it again, and he wouldn't think about his leg. That's good that he wouldn't think about his leg, but we covered it last week here on the podcast. He's not 100%, but I do believe he will get close to 100% by the start of the season. The video I've seen of Dak, he's not necessarily fully mobile yet, but I do believe that he will get there. Here's the injury segment I was talking about with Carl Banks. This is ACL tears over the last 8 seasons. Total tears, which 2020 is a little bit down, but in season or regular season tears, 33, higher by a little bit. This is what I'm saying, that it's my belief some of the acclimation injuries, and ACLs can be acclimation injuries, got shifted into the regular season. So some of these 33, let's say 5 or 10, really would have happened in the preseason, and that would have brought this number down to 28 or 23 and been more in line. So you don't necessarily get rid of the injuries or all injuries by not playing a preseason game. You certainly can argue the regular season got injuries, ACL tears are in the 53, and some of the preseason ones would be guys in the 90, 53 to 90, so to speak. So there are differences, but that's probably one of the pandemic outcomes and analysis in terms of injuries. As we keep marching through, I'm San Diego biased. The Padres have the best record in Major League Baseball. Does anyone remember that Tatis is going to ultimately need shoulder surgery? It's amazing what he's doing. He's hitting 786 over the last 4 games with 12 RBIs and walked 3 times. Amazing, Fernando Tatis. My son is definitely, he's made an all-star team. He's 8 years old. His coach isn't so good, Dad, but he's got the Tatis socks and the whole deal. And between Phil and Tatis, it's pretty good out in San Diego right now in terms of sports. All right, some more baseball. You have to talk baseball. You want to talk Mike Trout. I mean, his calf injury. I think he's going to be gone for close to the 60 days. It's the Shohei Ohtani show now for the Angels. I think he's the MVP now, not Mike Trout, because Mike Trout is going to be out of it because he's going to be 2 months here, I think, at least, from a calf strain where he has felt a pop. And so too bad for Mike Trout, the perennial all-star and perennial MVP, top of the MVP race, but not this year. All right, more baseball here. This is Tommy John. Happy 78th birthday to Tommy John. I'll tell you my Tommy John story here. I had a kid not that long ago come into my office, pitcher, and said, yeah, I think you're going to need the dreaded Tommy John surgery. And he said, Doc, I like you, I respect you, I know you do all these athletes, but should I have Dr. John do the surgery? I'm like, Dr. John? Yeah, he goes, Dr. Tommy John, the guy that the surgeon that invented the surgery that was named after. I'm like, no, he's a baseball player. And then I realized that I'm so old that this kid, he's in his 20s, he wasn't alive to see Tommy John pitch, right? I mean, it was so long ago. But in any case, my point to Carl Banks is, look at this. He's put in this big old hard cast. Right, continue with a little bit of basketball. This is Chris Paul and his injury, shoulder injury for the Suns as they play the Lakers. Gets his arm tangled up and then some friendly fire. Grabs at his shoulder. It looks to me, certainly it's more than a shoulder contusion than the Suns are saying. I think he's got, hopefully he did not, there's worry that he subluxed his shoulder. He came back and played through, was in and out of the game, wasn't himself. Chris Paul's tough. He's going to finish the series, I think, but hopefully he does not have a labral tear. It didn't look like it was a stinger to me based on the lack of the way his head went. It would be more of a nerve issue than a stinger, a disc issue. I don't think it's that, but hopefully he can continue to play and soldier through. And let's wind up here with a couple of videos, what happened here videos. This one, get a little bit gruesome here, guys, so look away if you want here. This one, hockey player. See him at the bottom get hit right there. There's a replay coming up here. Let me show that to you again. The bottom. In any case, I think the athletic trainers did what they could, and the medical personnel. It just wasn't, look, he's trying to calm him down, but he's obviously confused. He's telling him to stay down, but he just wants to get up. I've been there before where the player inadvertently doesn't want to listen, and he's supporting his neck and doing the right thing. And the final video here of what happened here, look away if you're squeamish. This has happened a few times recently in baseball. We talked about last week, the ball ricochets off immediately, and thus it was a direct blow. Unlike Bryce Harper, where it tipped the helmet, came down at an angle, and that's why Bryce Harper escaped without real injury. Kevin Pillar took it like a champion. Look, the best case scenario happened. You know, broken bones are happening. But since he got hit flush in the nose, black eyes, nasal fractures, all that stuff, but no orbital fracture, no zygomatic arch fracture, etc. So as horrific as that looked, it was the best case scenario for Kevin Pillar in terms of what happened there. And, you know, should people wear full face? I don't know. Is there something with the ball and control of the ball? I don't know. Do people have substances on the ball? I don't know. The bottom line is there's been an unfortunate rash of players being hit in the head recently, and hopefully it stops there. Anyways, thanks for watching here. Go to YouTube. Part 1 and part 2 are always on YouTube. Subscribe so you get the notifications and get things a little bit easier. And we'll pump out some more content besides Pro Football Doc podcast on Outkick and YouTube, but the video segments on YouTube as well. Special thanks to Carl Banks. Pleasure to get to talk to him. And thanks to you for following along and watching. Have a good week. And we'll see you next week on the Pro Football Doc podcast.